Okay, so what if you could just like freeze frame one single day
Hmm.
and really get the huge shifts happening, all over the world?
Yeah, see the big picture from the small moments.
Exactly. That's what we're doing today. We're diving deep into August 14th, 2025.
A really packed day.
Oh, yeah. High stakes diplomacy, surprising market stuff, big moments in tech, public health, human rights, too.
And our mission really isn't just running through headlines.
No, not at all.
We've got a whole stack of sources, Reuters, Bloomberg, AP, government notices.
Right.
And we're going to pull out the key insights, connect those dots for you.
So you can get properly informed fast on what happened that day. Okay, let's unpack this.
And hopefully you'll see how these things, they might seem totally separate, but they're often deeply connected. This dive should show not just what happened, but why it actually matters, the forces shaping things.
Perfect way to put it. And speaking of those forces, let's jump straight into geopolitics because August 14th saw some really big moves, starting with a summit in Alaska, of all places.
Right. I mean, context first. Since Russia's big invasion of Ukraine back in early 22,
February, yeah.
diplomacy just kept failing, didn't it?
Yeah.
And the fighting, the attrition, it just ground on through 2024 into 2025.
Just awful. So there was this real urgency for some kind of breakthrough.
And that's where August 14th comes in.
Yeah.
President Trump flies out to Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Anchorage, Alaska,
Yeah.
to meet Putin.
And the location itself, that Cold War-era airbase, that sends a message, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Security symbolism, U.S. leverage on Arctic stuff, energy.
Yeah.
It's all baked in.
So Trump apparently thought Putin was, quote, ready to make a deal.
Though he gave it, what, like a 25% chance of real progress? Not exactly brimming with confidence.
Huh, no. But Washington hoped maybe they could bring Zelensky in later, if these first talks set up some kind of framework.
The agenda was pretty focused, it seems. Ceasefire ideas, prisoner swaps, maybe a path for arms control.
And this feels huge. Kyiv wasn't there.
No.
Zelensky was kept out of these initial talks in Alaska.
Which sends a very powerful signal, negotiating over Ukraine without Ukraine present.
What kind of message is that? And how does that affect anything they might agree on?
It's tough. It immediately makes you question if any deal could actually stick, if it's seen as imposed.
Right.
And then, adding to the tension just hours before the summit,
Oh, yeah, the drone strike?
Ukrainian drones hit the Sizran refinery, a big Russian oil facility.
And that wasn't the first time recently, was it?
No, the 9th time in a month, apparently. So Ukraine was definitely ramping up economic pressure right as talks were about to start.
Wow. So how did the world react to this summit news?
Well, predictably, markets, oil traders, Ukraine's creditors, everyone was watching very closely.
Cautious optimism, maybe, mixed with a lot of skepticism.
Exactly. We've seen these hopes dashed before. Oil prices dipped a bit on the idea of de-escalation.
But credit markets stayed nervous.
They did. And European officials were particularly worried, warning that a deal made over Ukraine's head, well, it could lock in Russia's gains and really shake up alliances.
That feels critical. It's not just about stopping the fighting. It's about the whole security setup in Europe.
Precisely. It
Yeah.
challenges that core principle, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
Yeah.
And if we kind of pivot now, but stick with this theme of executive power,
Yeah.
we saw something pretty dramatic happening domestically. In Washington, D.C., same day.
Right. The federal takeover of D.C. policing. This has been simmering for decades, hasn't it? The tension between federal power and D.C.'s home rule.
It has.
Yeah.
And earlier that summer, the White House had already started asserting more control over local security in some cities, citing crime, immigration issues.
And boom, August 14th, President Trump makes the move, federalizing parts of D.C. police.
The White House basically said Attorney General Pam Bondi was now in charge of the force.
And they brought in DEA Administrator Ann Milgram as an emergency commissioner.
Yes, and National Guard units were already showing up earlier that week.
It just feels like such a major step. Federal overreach. Is there any precedent for this kind of thing?
Well, it's highly unusual, very controversial. Using something like the Insurrection Act is one thing, but a direct federal takeover of a city police force, pushing aside local leadership like that, it's pretty much uncharted territory in modern times.
And the local reaction.
Immediate resistance. D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith said flat out, "I report to the mayor." City leaders promised lawsuits.
Protests, too, I imagine. Accusations of undermining civil liberties.
Absolutely. Big concerns about it being an unconstitutional power grab.
So just instant confusion about who's actually in command. legal experts warning about the precedent this sets.
Yeah, dangerous precedent for federal interference in local matters.
So these two things, Alaska and D.C., worlds apart, different issues.
Do you see that common thread, right?
Oh.
Assertions of executive power.
Definitely. Willingness to challenge norms, whether it's international diplomacy or the federal-local balance here at home.
And the impacts are immediate and pretty controversial.
Yeah, profound ripple effects. Okay, so the political world was churning. But that never happens in isolation, does it? How is the economy reacting? What tremors were felt there on the 14th?
Well, we'd had this period, right? Inflation seemed to be cooling off.
Hopes were up for the Fed to cut rates in September.
Okay.
Wall Street was near record highs.
Everyone was kind of holding their breath for the producer price data, hoping for good news.
And instead, surprise.
A big surprise.
Yeah.
The July Producer Price Index, the PPI, came in much hotter than expected on August 14th.
How much hotter?
Producer prices jumped nearly 1% in just that month. That was the biggest monthly leap in 3 years.
Wow, okay. That's significant. Any particular areas driving that?
Yeah, get this. Fresh and dry vegetable prices, they soared 38% compared to the year before.
38%. For veggies. What caused that?
Seems like a mix of things. Lingering tariffs, weird weather globally disrupting crops, and still some supply chain kinks.
It's almost dizzying, isn't it? Trying to follow these signals. Record highs 1 minute, then suddenly worried about vegetable prices the next.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, and how vulnerable supply chains still are to things like tariffs or climate shocks.
So how did the markets actually take this PPI news?
Well, interestingly, the S&P 500 actually managed to eke out another tiny record close.
Really?
Yeah, but the Dow slipped, NASDAQ was mixed, but traders definitely reacted. They started dialing back bets on a big September rate cut, thinking maybe a smaller one now.
Okay, so recalculating expectations. And while that was happening in traditional markets, crypto was doing something else entirely.
Oh yeah, crypto had been making a big comeback through 2024 into 2025.
Driven by what? More big institutions getting involved?
That, yeah, and maybe friendlier policy noises out of the U.S., things like the Bitcoin ETFs getting approved, easier access and retirement plans.
Then just general hopes for easier money from the Fed.
Exactly. So building on all that, August 14th, Bitcoin hits a new record, over $124,000.
Wow, 124,000.
Yeah, it eased back a bit after, but still. Ether was climbing too, near its own highs.
And this was tied mostly to those Fed cut bets, even with the hot PPI report.
Seems like it. Just a general risk-on feeling, maybe. Even if the PPI data complicated the picture for how much the Fed might cut.
And what are the implications of Bitcoin at those levels?
Well, obviously a huge wealth boost for anyone holding it, but it also brings more scrutiny, right? Questions about risk and retirement plans if people are loading up on crypto.
And renewed calls for consumer protection rules.
Definitely. That debate always heats up when prices surge.
Now, shifting focus globally, we saw some real economic contrasts playing out in Asia around the same time. Shows how uneven things are.
Absolutely. If you connect this to the bigger picture, you see just how complex the global economy is right now. Very different stories in different places.
So what was happening in China?
Well, data coming out around August 14th, 15th showed things slowed down. Factory output, retail sales growth, both weaker than hoped. Investment looks soft, too.
Seen as a setback.
Yeah, definitely framed that way. More pressure on Beijing to step in with stronger support. The usual suspects were blamed. The ongoing property sector problems, shaky consumer confidence, plus headwinds from those U.S. tariffs.
Okay, so China's slowing, but Japan.
Japan was the opposite story, really.
Yeah.
Their Q2 GDP numbers came out August 15th Tokyo time, and they beat expectations.
Helped by exports.
Yeah, strong exports seemed to be the driver. That pushed the yen up a bit and made people think, okay, maybe the Bank of Japan will raise rates again soon.
So two huge economies kind of pulling in different directions.
Exactly. It just highlights the diverse challenges out there. It's definitely not a simple, uniform global picture.
All right, let's pivot to tech. August 14th had some big headlines there, too, really spotlighting the challenges of regulating tech as it evolves so fast.
Especially with generative AI becoming so widespread. Safety policies, particularly for kids using these tools, became a huge flashpoint.
Clashing with all the existing worries about social media's impact on kids.
Right. And then on August 14th, Reuters dropped a bombshell investigation.
Into Meta's internal rules.
Yeah, their content risk standards. The report claimed Meta's own rules had actually allowed chatbots to say racist things.
Wow.
And even have romantic or sensual conversations with users identified as children.
That's deeply disturbing. What was Meta's response?
They said the examples Reuters cited were errors. and that they removed that specific rule after Reuters asked about it.
Still, the fact it was even there.
Exactly. The reaction was instant. U.S. senators calling for investigations within hours, demanding new laws for kids' online safety.
Warnings about unbounded AI risk.
Yeah, when the safety measures just can't keep up with how fast the tech is rolled out.
This really ups the stakes for regulating AI, doesn't it? Impacts Section 230 age verification laws.
Huge implications.
Yeah.
It's that constant battle.
Yeah.
Innovation versus safety. And finding the right balance is incredibly difficult.
And it raises that fundamental question, privacy versus protection, especially for kids online.
And actually, the Supreme Court touched on a related issue that same day, August 14th.
Oh, right. The state laws trying to regulate kids' access to social media.
Exactly. States have been pushing these laws, while the tech industry argues they violate free speech.
So what did the Supreme Court do?
They decided not to block Mississippi's law, the one requiring age verification and parental consent, while the legal challenges continue in lower courts.
Okay, so the law stays in effect for now. What does that mean practically?
It means platforms are facing this messy patchwork of different state rules. Challenges are still ongoing everywhere.
Supporters say it protects kids. Industry says it's bad for privacy and free speech.
It's a really complex legal and social tangle right now.
Definitely. Okay, also in tech news that day, something about Intel.
Yeah, this is interesting. Washington's been pushing hard to bring advanced chip manufacturing back to the U.S.
The CHPS Act, right? Billions in subsidies, mostly about supply chains and national security.
Exactly. But Intel, a key player, has been struggling. Delays, financial losses.
So what was the news on the 14th?
Bloomberg reported that the U.S. government was actually discussing taking an equity stake in Intel, buying shares in the company.
Whoa! The government owning part of Intel. That's unprecedented, isn't it?
Pretty much. The news sent Intel's stock price soaring.
How did officials justify this idea?
Framed purely as national security, to guarantee U.S.-based advanced chip production capacity.
What was the reaction? Mixed, I assume.
Very mixed. Supporters said, okay, maybe this helps lower the huge financial risk of building these massive new factories, these fabs.
But the skeptics?
They warned that government ownership won't magically fix Intel's technical problems. And it risks politicizing decisions about which companies get support. A real debate about industrial policy versus the free market.
Fascinating. And one more tech-related item. Space industry.
Right. The private space sector is booming, expanding rapidly.
And the administration wants to encourage that.
Seems so. On August 14th, President Trump issued an executive order aimed at streamlining regulations for the private space industry, cutting red tape, essentially.
How was that received?
Business leaders loved it, mostly, predicting more investment, more jobs.
But critics worried about
The safety standards potentially being lowered, and the environmental impact of more launches.
So across AI, social media, chips, space, it's this constant tightrope walk, isn't it? Trying to foster innovation, protect people, and ensure national security all at the same time.
It really highlights how complex governing is in this high-tech era. Regulation is constantly playing catch-up.
Okay, let's shift focus now to some really urgent crises that were demanding attention on August 14th. Starting with Gaza, where the situation just seems to go from bad to worse.
It's truly devastating. Israel's military operations there under intense global scrutiny since, October 7, 2023.
And the reports from August 14th, 2025, the human toll was staggering.
Confirmed reports said at least 100 Palestinians were killed in just 24 hours as Israeli assaults intensify.
100 people.
And beyond the immediate deaths from attacks.
Starvation.
Over 235 people reported starved to death since the siege began.
Including over 100 children.
Including 106 children.
It
shows how conflict can weaponize basic needs like food.
It's more than just casualty numbers, isn't it? It's a fundamental challenge to international norms about protecting civilians.
Absolutely. It forces everyone to look hard at the limits of humanitarian aid and whether global interventions are working at all.
What were the specific reports from that day? Ground invasions?
Yeah, Israeli tanks pushing into areas. Dozens reportedly shot by snipers just trying to get food.
Oh, my God.
The World Health Organization was pleading for medical transfers out. And the UN even accused Israel of medicide, destroying hospitals, blocking aid.
And the global reaction, besides condemnation?
Well, the UK and a group of 27 other governments formally denounced Israel's actions, calling them violations of humanitarian law.
Israel's response?
The Defense Ministry denied deliberately targeting civilians, as they often do. It's just a deeply tragic, incredibly complex crisis with no end in sight. A massive humanitarian emergency, And it's widening those international rifts over Middle East policy.
Okay, shifting regions but sticking with crises. Labor unrest impacting travel.
Yeah, the post-pandemic travel boom hitting up against labor action. Air Canada was the focus on August 14th.
Talks breaking down with their union.
Right, with CUPE, the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Yeah. A strike deadline was looming for the weekend.
So Air Canada started canceling flights preemptively.
They did. Began canceling hundreds of flights on the 14th, aiming for about 500 cancellations by Friday.
Affecting how many people?
Estimates varied. Reuters said potentially up to 100,000 passengers. CNN suggested maybe disrupting plans for 130,000 daily passengers. Huge numbers either way.
What were the main sticking points in the dispute?
Seemed to be long-running issues over pay for ground staff, ground pay, and modernizing work rules.
Critics hitting Air Canada hard on wages.
Yeah, accusations of poverty-level wages. Meanwhile, management stressed needing changes for operational recovery. It's that classic conflict, isn't it? Company finances versus worker livelihoods.
And this is where it directly hits everyday people. Hundreds of thousands facing travel chaos during peak season. A stark reminder of how labor disputes ripple outwards.
Definitely. And beyond conflict and labor, the climate crisis was making itself felt very forcefully on August 14th, too.
Wildfires, right. Southern Europe's getting hit hard.
Tragically hard. Fires in Spain and Greece were killing firefighters, burning homes, factories, forcing thousands to evacuate.
And scientists connecting it directly to the heat dome.
Yes, linking it to human-caused warming, warning that summers like 2025 are basically the new normal now.
And it wasn't just Europe, was it? Canada, too.
Right. Newfoundland and Labrador are dealing with their biggest fire in decades, wiping out homes, displacing tens of thousands.
And meanwhile, in the Atlantic, hurricane season ramping up.
Yep. Mid-August is typically when it starts getting serious. And on August 14th, Tropical Storm Erin was strengthening.
Expected to become a hurricane.
Expected to, yeah. Fueled by unusually warm ocean temperatures. Watches went up for parts of the Leeward Islands, warnings about dangerous surf, heavy rain.
It's just relentless, isn't it? Climate impacts hitting on so many different fronts at once.
It really is. And alongside these big weather events, other public health alarms were going off.
Like the invasive ticks.
Yeah, health experts put out fresh alerts on the 14th about invasive tick species spreading across the U.S.
Linked to Lyme disease and other nasty stuff.
Exactly. Highlighting one of those hidden impacts of climate change, how it helps pests spread.
And there was also bad news on the global health funding front. Tuberculosis.
A really concerning one. On August 14th, USAID officially cut its funding for TB programs in Bangladesh.
Why is that so significant?
Because TB is the world's deadliest infectious disease, and Bangladesh is a hotspot. Cutting funding halts progress and raises real fears of mass contagion spreading.
Wow. So from Gaza to wildfires to TB funding cuts, it just hammers home how interconnected these global crises are. Conflict, climate, policy shifts, all having immediate severe impacts on people's lives and well-being.
Absolutely. They demand urgent responses and show how tightly public health, environmental stability, and global politics are linked.
Okay, let's round this out by looking at some key legal battles and regional instability that were also in the news on August 14th, starting with the NFL.
Yeah, the Brian Flores lawsuit. Remember, he sued the league back in 2022.
Alleging racial discrimination, sham interviews for coaching jobs.
Right. And the NFL had been trying hard to force the case into its own internal arbitration process out of the public courts.
And the news on the 14th was
a major setback for the NFL. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled against forcing Flores' main claims into arbitration.
Meaning it can go to a public trial.
Exactly. The court called the NFL's arbitration setup plainly unenforceable. So now the door is open for discovery, depositions, courtroom scrutiny of their hiring practices.
Flores' lawyers must see this as a big win.
Oh, definitely. Called it a step towards accountability. And it could have wider implications, right? How sports leagues, maybe other industries too, use these mandatory arbitration clauses.
Challenges the whole system they use to keep disputes private.
Precisely.
Okay, another legal development, this one in Peru. Amnesty for human rights crimes.
Yes, on August 14th, President Dina Boluarte signed a controversial law. It grants blanket amnesty to military and police accused of human rights abuses.
Peru's had a long, difficult history with political violence and impunity, hasn't it?
It has, and this law immediately blew up that controversy again.
How is it justified?
Supporters claimed it was necessary for stability, to kind of draw a line under the past.
But opponents
called it a license to kill. Said it basically guarantees impunity and encourages future abuses. Fierce opposition.
So more protests, legal challenges expected.
Almost certainly. It really highlights Peru's ongoing struggle to balance security with justice and basic human rights. A very divisive move.
And elsewhere, signs of deepening instability. Mali and Sudan.
Yeah, in Mali, authorities announced arrests on August 14th related to an alleged coup plot.
Including military figures and someone linked to France.
2 generals, apparently, and someone they claimed was a French intelligence agent. But rights groups immediately raised red flags.
Worried it was less about a real plot and more about silencing government critics.
That was the concern, yeah. Just adding to the instability across that whole Sahel region.
And Sudan.
Also on the 14th, the UN Security Council formally rejected an attempt by the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, to declare their own independent state in northern Darfur.
Fearing it would just make the conflict even worse.
Exactly. Worsen the fighting, further destabilize the region. So these stories from Peru, Mali, Sudan, they all paint a picture of ongoing struggles for justice, stability, human rights around the world, often with big international consequences.
And just one last incident to mention from that day. A highway crash.
A potentially scary one, yeah. A truck carrying radioactive materials crashed on a highway in Washington state on August 14.
Radioactive materials, how serious was it?
Thankfully, a federal hazmat team responded quickly. Roads were partially closed, but no serious injuries were reported.
Phew. Still, it raises concerns, doesn't it?
Definitely. Revived worries about how we transport hazardous materials, the safety of that infrastructure, a reminder of potential risks even in seemingly routine events.
Wow. What a day indeed. We've covered a lot of ground just by focusing on August 14th, 2025.
From the highest levels of diplomacy in Alaska,
To the federal government stepping into D.C. policing.
through the ups and downs of the markets, crypto soaring,
The worries about AI safety, the debates over chips in space.
to the heartbreaking realities in Gaza, the wildfires, the looming airline strike.
Legal battles, regional instability. It really shows a world constantly moving, constantly facing challenges.
And by connecting these dots, hopefully you, the listener, have a much richer sense of the forces at play than just glancing at headlines.
That was the goal, a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about the dynamics of that single pivotal day.
Showing how these separate threads weave together into the bigger global tapestry.
So we've seen the immediate impacts, but the big question, maybe the one to leave you with, is about the long term.
What unexpected consequences might eventually grow from the seeds planted on just one day, like August 14th?
And how might these different issues, diplomacy, tech, climate, human rights, how might they converge down the line in ways we can't even foresee right now?
Something to think about.